Welcome, ICF members, and any other speakers, coach, consultant speakers who happens to find this webinar. We are about to discuss how increasing the quality of your presentation skills can build your credibility and your business. In case we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Patricia Fripp, executive speech coach and Hall of Fame keynote speaker, and of course the person who will be your personal coach for the next 55 minutes to make sure you maximize your business. We have two co-presenters with me. First of all, our moderator, Paul, who will tell you how to interact, and we have some polling questions, and then we will introduce you to Lisa Patrick. So, Paul, how do our friends talk to us, and what are the first couple of polls?
Well, Patricia, on the right-hand side of their screen, everyone will see a chat box. In that chat box, you'll be able to enter your short, specific questions throughout the call, and they'll be answered live. So get those in sooner rather than later so we have plenty of time. And in that same area, there will be a polling question or four pop up so you can vote on those answers. We'll go ahead and bring up the first one. Did you meet Fripp at the ICF convention? You can click yes or no, then click vote, and just keep an eye out for this area for polling questions throughout the call.
Wonderful. Because the purpose of this event was really a follow-up, because at Converge 17, which was lots of fun and full of wonderful people and great sessions, there were so many people who were trying to get into my room or said, hey, please, 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 was this recorded? And it wasn't. So we wanted to make a point of giving you the highlights or introducing some of the most important parts of the event for those of you who couldn't attend. And I was there with Lisa Patrick, and Lisa and I had a table for extra credit. So Lisa Patrick, tell us, why were you at ICF Converge with me?
Thank you, Patricia. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the session. The reason that Patricia and I were at the Extra Credits booth at ICF Converge, wearing our wonderful hats, if you happen to be there, was because Patricia is a member of the faculty of experts here at Extra Credits, who offer you as a coach, as a certified ACC, MCC, or PCC, your recertification credits towards your continuing coaching education. And so you can find Patricia at extracredits.com. Patricia Fripp, and she's a member of the faculty there and has on-demand course offerings. And so we wanted to let everybody at ICF Converge know about the opportunity, and the members that are available, that are required to take continuing education, have the opportunity to take it on demand in your pajamas if you wish.
Good. And so certainly, whether you're watching this live or in person, you are welcome, and we're thrilled that you are here. Paul, can you give me the answer of the polling questions? How many people actually met us?
Absolutely. Well, 27% did have the pleasure of meeting you at ICF, and 73% did not.
Well, wonderful. Good. Then, Paul, let's bring up the PowerPoint, which will be a guide, and this will be available as a download after, whether you are watching this live or in person. Now, early in my career, before I was a keynote speaker, coach, I was a men's hairstylist. And what I found is that once I started speaking to my clients, Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, Lions clubs, and Optimist Club, I really built my business. And certainly now, as a speaker, as a coach or consultant, if you realize that the more you speak and the better you speak, the more credibility you have, and the opportunity in a non-salesy way, you can talk about the results of your clients. And when it comes to putting together a presentation, and Paul, I would be very much interested, bringing up the next poll is, do people consider themselves a beginner, intermediate, or advanced presenter? And with presentations, and you might be naturally talented, and I'm sure you are, because you talk to people all the time, you have great skills and expertise. But when it comes to a really great presentation that's going to build your credibility, drive your business, don't trust inspiration. What you trust is starting early. You start the preparation. You collaborate with others. It's very difficult to be creative in isolation and then rehearse. As Michael Caine said, rehearsal is the work, performance is the relaxation. And my approach to all presentations is, let's put your structure, your words, your stories under the magnifying glass to take a closer look. Some of my coaching clients charge $25,000 for their speeches before they come to me. Some of my executive clients, they speak to audiences 2, 5, 10,000 people. And it's not that they are not good. And what many of them overlook, they know what they are going to say. They haven't thought through exactly what are the words they're going to use at the opening. One day I was sitting in my office opening my email, and the email said, "Dear Patricia, I'm a big fan of yours. May I interview you for my blog?" Well, I don't know about you, but I am a short-term project person working on creating my online training that Lisa was talking about. And that was a large project, long-term, trying to remove my isolation. I was trying to get rid of every distraction so I could just focus. And I was about to send an email response, which I did at the time. I would love to, can you contact me in 3 months? And I thought, well, before I send the email, let me check his website. Now, I don't know about you, but when I say a movie star, handsome man like this, and this was from his website, asking for my advice, I thought, well, maybe I'll pick up the phone. So I said, what is an Emmy Award-winning TV interviewer and game show host doing being my fan? Well, we had a great conversation, and after 30 minutes, he said, Patricia, that's great. I got enough for 3 or 4 blogs. This is wonderful, but come on, one last question. What is the #1 secret of delivering a fabulous, powerful, persuasive presentation? I said, oh, there's no one secret. And then it hit me. And I realized a brand new Frippicism was about to fall flawlessly from my lips. I said, although there is no one secret, if there is, it would be that your subject is of interest to your audience. And if you are delivering a marketing presentation, again, you have to give content that if they never hired you as a coach, they would be better for the experience. However, if you are on the slot, a meeting that they would be there whether you were there or not, then you have to find a way to make them interested in the subject that they might not have realized they were. And the secret of that is, of course, you have to speak as an audience advocate. So, for example, if you were speaking at a Chamber of Commerce, for example, you would know that the audience is made up of small to medium-sized businesses. And you give your examples from your coaching clients, because you're going to tell stories about how you help people improve their condition. You might say, Mary was a very enthusiastic Chamber of Commerce member who. Now, in reality, maybe you have no idea if she belonged to the chamber, or maybe she wasn't. Remember, with your stories and examples, they don't have to be exactly true. They have to be emotionally true, so you can adapt it. And one great way to make people interested in your presentation is watching the I versus you balance. Don't say, I am going to talk about. It's what you will hear, what you will learn. And I recommend, even in your everyday conversations, if you record your side of telephone conversations, or while you're just chatting with your friends, record them and watch how often you say I versus you, and to see if you could change sentences and have them more you focused than I. So the first principle of any great presentation is make it focused on the audience. Now, Paul, before I get to the next point, which is opening the presentation, how does this live audience compare themselves? Are they beginner, intermediate, or advanced? And this is your point of view.
Well, we have 50% beginner. 30.
Sorry, can you say that again, Paul? 50% a beginner?
Yes.
Yes.
And then 30% intermediate. And 17% advanced.
Now, Paul, when you're speaking at the end of your sentence, it goes away, but 17% are advanced and probably thinking, Fripp, I should be given this webinar myself. Wonderful. And feel free at any point to write your notes in the chat box, any questions, any comments. Do we have any submitted yet, Paul?
Not right now.
Okay, well, feel free. So we're going to make our presentation focused on the audience, you focus language. Then let's look at how do you open your presentation with impact? Because most professionals, I find, are great. Once they get going, very few in over 30 years of coaching, very few know how to open their presentation and conclude on a high. And if there is one area that a lot of my corporate clients that I've worked with a lot, they say, oh, Fripp, we got the presentation, we'll run through. How do we open? And there are various choices. For example, you can start with a question. And I would, if you ever have a question that you are using, have you ever, which is one approach that a lot of speakers use, and it is a good question. I would suggest you change it to how often have you. So, for example, if I said, how often have you stepped up to the microphone and forgotten how you intended to open your presentation? See, if it's how often, that means it has happened more than once. You are probably interested in my advice. If you say, have you ever, even if it's a recurring problem, people are more inclined to think, oh, well, I lived through it. That makes sense. You could also use a rhetorical question. If I were to ask you, and then what you do, you often 3 suggestions, and the third one is the one you want. So, for example, if I were to ask you, is 2017 the year you double the quality of your presentations? You'd probably say, yes, no, or most likely, Patricia, I would love it to be. Can you tell me how? Well, welcome. You're at the right place at the right time, because every opening has to transition into the body of your speech. An interesting statistic or little known fact. Now, I would recommend you find a statistic that would tie into why your coaching is of value. And it might be interesting if you, in the chat box, feel free to write what you are coaching your clients to do better, What are the results at the end of your coaching? That'd just be interesting. So a little known, a statistic or little known fact. And when you do that, I recommend that you add an emotion. Would it interest you to know? Would it surprise you to know? Would it shock you to know? Would it amaze you to know? And certainly stories and examples, and that is the next subject we will be talking about. Let's just say you have a coaching practice that helps people improve. Let's just say they get more, they can help you get more business. The opening story might be about somebody who had exactly the same problem that you predict your audience has. And then you can say, in case you have the same challenge as Mary, this is the advice that I recommended. So this is a 5-step program or 3-step program, whatever you do. And then at the end of your presentation, you can say, just last month, Mary called and said, Patricia, I would not have believed it possible. Based on your 5-step process, I've done this. So in other words, it's the opening of your presentation is a story of the problem that your coaching client had, which is similar to what you predict the audience has, and the conclusion is the happy ever after. A statement is, it's your point of view. Now, I often say, my statement is, never ceases to amaze me that intelligent, well-educated, and ambitious professionals frequently overlook developing the number one skill that is guaranteed to position them ahead of the crowd, namely developing the ability to stand up and speak eloquently with confidence, or at very least stagger to their feet and say anything at all. And then transport the audience. You can transport them to the past or to the future. Let's go back to 1972, or imagine, and these are phrases that can take them. So you see, imagine it is September the 28th, 2018. So you're taking them forward to a year. You paint a picture of how life might be. I could paint a picture of you getting standing ovations. And then we say, will that be a reality? Well, it depends. And now you go back to what you're going to teach you in 2017 that would lead to them having that result in 2018. Now, Paul, are there any questions or comments, or do we have anybody tell us their areas of expertise?
Well, we do have an answer to the question, do you speak to audiences larger than 10?
Good.
100% say yes.
Good.
And then, let's see, there is an opening line request if you'd like to review that.
Oh, I love the opening line.
It's similar to yours. It's if I were to ask you, or one of yours, is 2017 the year you are going to advance your career and get the position you are looking for?
Good. I like that. And again, you can play with this. You could say, that would be wonderful. And then you offer your three, perhaps you'd say yes or no. Most likely you would say Cindy, Mary, John. Good. Very good. So these are formulas, they're principles for you to work with. And understand that you could tell a story. For example, the imagine it is, or I wish you could have met Mary. And then you can transition into the body of your presentation with would it interest, surprise, or amaze you to know, or if I were to ask you. So these suggestions and opening lines, you can combine a couple of them, sometimes 3. Good. If I were to ask you, see, these are the words. It's one thing to give you the principles. It's another to actually give you lines. Wonderful. I wish you could have been there. Now, I wish you could have been there means I am taking you to in the past. I'm taking the past and I am taking you somewhere nice. For example, in one coaching camp, someone said, I wish you could have been at my father's funeral. And I suggested that was not a good strategy for the opening of your presentation. If you had within the body of your presentation talked about what a wonderful life your father had, how he lived to 98 years old, he had seen his children and grandchildren successful, he did not have a debilitating disease, he just died peaceably, having dinner with his wife of 76 years, surrounded by his children, he was happy. Then at the conclusion of your presentation, then you could take them to the scene where the church was packed, everyone wore bright clothes, and there was music and laughter, and it was a celebration of his life. So that would work. Then, as you say, how often of you, remember that one often will make a major difference if you're using a question with the opening line. Here's another one that would be a great way to open the presentation. It was the most exhilarating moment of my life. And I suggest just for an exercise, if that were your opening line, what story would you be telling next? Now, if you were to say it was the scariest moment of my life, what would the story be? A lot of these opening lines actually trigger the creativity for you to come up with content that perhaps you hadn't thought of. Mary had a problem is a perfect example of what Michael Haig, who is a story consultant in Hollywood, says is get into the scene late. So, for example, if your opening line was, Mary had a problem, you're probably thinking, who's Mary? What's her problem? So, Paul, with that, before we go into more details with stories, do we have questions or comments?
Absolutely.
Good.
Let's see. So we have coaching someone in Hollywood. When coaching someone and suggesting such openings, and he said, I cannot do it like this, how can I help him? I think you're on mute.
Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. So can you, I'm not quite clear of the question. Can you pose it again?
Oh, certainly. When someone's basically when someone's coaching someone on openings, they say, use this opening. And the person that they're coaching says, oh, I can't do it like that. How can they help him?
Okay, perfect. Well, a lot depends on your relationship because naturally, this is a good portion of my life is coaching people. So, and this is very important because I have a certain larger than life personality. And I make it very clear to my clients that I'm not trying to make you anybody you are not. We are just trying to make you the best of you. And that's why we give people options. And if people say, no, I couldn't say that, I wouldn't say that way, fine, let's give them another option. I'm not forcing every suggestion down everybody's throats. We give them options. And this is the most important with whatever we're coaching them to do. We're trying to make them a better you, not a better anybody else. Paul, anything else?
Yes, regarding opening lines, when someone is coaching a workshop session, should they thank the audience for attending and then start with the opening line, or what should they do?
No, I would not. And the key idea with the opening of a presentation is to arouse interest in your subject. And if you sound the same as everybody else, it's going to be boring. One, if you are at a breakout session, let's just say you're at a conference and they chose to be there. For example, like Converge, there were lots of choices. My approach would be grab the audiences with something interesting that makes them think, wow, this is going to be good. And then you can say, thank you for selecting this session. And what I'll often do is say, you paid your money, you got 6 choices. If after 5 minutes you do not believe this is exactly what you want, go find another session. I won't be in the slightest bit offended. I have done that in some sessions. And of course, then most likely I would probably do it closer to the end, because just because they're there doesn't mean they're going to stay, doesn't mean they're going to participate, doesn't mean they're not looking at their phone. So if you have a great need, do it after your opening impact line. Any more, Paul?
That's all for now.
Good. Stories. We know you're not going to have a good speech or seminar, or even probably coaching your clients. You're going to give examples within your presentation. And what is good about stories is that listeners see them the way they want to see them. They're not always the same. And stories are about people. You are going to populate your stories with flesh and blood characters that the audience can relate to. This is why I suggested, if you're speaking to a chamber of commerce, you might make your character a member of the chamber. It's only part of their backstory. It's not going to change the essence of the stories. And of course, characters change. And as a coach or a speech coach, or anyone who is helping people improve their condition, there is a certain formula. And you already heard the suggestion, the beginning of your presentation, you can talk about the problem that your client had, or your character in the story, which is probably one and the same, the situation. And what we want to do, and this is what makes it come alive, deliver the situation in the client or customer's words. So, for example, Pat Wynn said, Patricia, as you know, we are a $2 billion software company with aspirations being 20 billion. Your work with our managers and engineers has been fabulous. Now we have the toughest challenge ever. We want you to work with our president. Now, can you see I am giving you the backstory and the situation in the other person's words? And that drives the story forward and makes it come alive. Then we want the solution. So if I was telling this story in a speech, I'd say, so I did what I do with all clients. I said, Bernard, very nice to meet you. If you had one sentence rather than 45 minutes, what would you say? So and this is where you would talk about, and this is in your words, the process that you go through. And then, of course, the success, the happy ever after, goes into their words. As you heard, just last month, Mary called and said, I wouldn't have believed it possible. Now, here's another technique. If this is in a presentation, you can put your name into their dialogue because you want the audience to remember your name. Just because it's on the program and your opening PowerPoint slide doesn't mean they're going to remember. So, Patricia, I would not have believed it possible. Or, Patricia, I wish you could have been there. Well, gave me a foundation. And this is the technique you've just been learning with the examples is don't report on the dialogue, deliver the dialogue. And the reporting on the dialogue was Pat Wynn called me and was talking about how they were a $2 billion software company. No, delivering the dialogue is Pat Wynn called and said, Patricia, as you know, we are a $2 billion. Can you see the difference? That makes your story come alive. Now, Paul, any other questions or comments before we go to the next way that you will perfect your presentations and build your credibility?
Certainly. When I'm coaching, sometimes my content is very technical. How do I present a complex concept through a story?
Good. Stories were designed to explain the complex in a simpler way. So, for example, in your audience, you are probably going to have people who know more of a subject and less of a subject, even if they know nothing. By telling a story of the result or why this is important or how this came about, then when you get to, now let's look at the steps that you're going to go through. So, for example, if you were introducing new technology, you can say, as you know, we have updated our technology to this because of that. Next Monday, you will look at your computer screen, and as soon as you click here, this is what you look at. So you're telling a story of what it will look like when they do it, and then you go through the steps. A story is a great way to explain the complex. And one example I used at Converge 17 was my friend Mike Powell, who was a senior scientist at Genentech. And I said, Mike, explain to the lay audience who doesn't meet scientists, and even if they do, they have no idea what they're talking about, what is it like being a scientist? And he told really what is a story in picture words. He said, being a scientist is like doing a jigsaw puzzle in a snowstorm at night when you don't have all the pieces and you don't have the picture you're trying to create. He was explaining to a lay audience the complexity and really the frustration of being a scientist. Any more, Paul?
Not at the moment.
Good. Our next way you're going to build your credibility, and this is my personal bias, specificity builds credibility. If you are going to hold yourself up as an expert, you cannot be a sloppy speaker. And you will not improve what you're not aware of, which means you need to record I would record your rehearsals of your presentations as well as the presentations. For example, most people, or let's put it this way, many people use the word stuff, or they finish a sentence and then they say all that stuff, which means absolutely nothing. Stuff, unless you are talking about what you do to your turkey at Thanksgiving, should not belong in your business conversation. It devalues what you say. And if you say it, I make my coaching clients slap their hand and say, now, what did you really mean by that? Or now say the sentence and complete it without the and that stuff. Things is non-specific. Now, it's very easy in everyday language. Of course, everyday conversations, we don't think in advance what we're going to say. That's a matter of a conversation. a speech or a presentation or a workshop or report to your clients, if you have corporate clients that you're giving a report to, needs to sound conversational. However, the difference is you think in advance what you're going to say. You make specific word choices. And the question I ask my clients more than any other is, specifically, what do you mean by things? If it weren't a thing, what would it be? With one engineer I was working with a couple of weeks ago, it would be an application. Great. Now, your clients know what an application is. It sounds valuable. And certainly living near Silicon Valley and with coaching internationally through video technology, many of my clients are from India or Europe or Dubai. English is their second or third language. However, so are the customers they will be talking to. So it's very important to use specific language. Now, here's another that is frequently used and is wrong. A ton is weight. Therefore, if you say, I went to ICF Converge and got tons of ideas, no, you didn't. You got 18 pages of notes. You had 20 actionable items. That's specific. You go to a networking event, met a ton of interesting people. Look at the cards. They weren't tons of cards. You wouldn't have left the hotel. So be specific. Be aware, again, listen to, record your conversation. Listen to your friends and clients when they speak. And another that somehow brilliant people, their language is full of kind of and sort of. And a lot of my executives, I tell them, please, 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 please understand that. If you're saying kind of and sort of when you're talking to your team members and your colleagues, they aren't going to think you're as confident as you want them to. Now, bunches is for grapes. So again, that's rather like tons. Out there is an expression. Out there, ideas out there. What do you mean? Do you mean in the marketplace, in our company, with our competition? So just be aware. Be specific. It'll build your credibility. So with that, Paul, any questions or comments or opening lines submitted?
Yes, we have a question. When I'm trying to for a new coaching client, how do I close a story that makes sense to close the deal?
Oh, good. So when you're talking to a potential coaching client, well, again, and it's going to be it's not going to be a 4-minute story, but it's going to be, Patricia, as you know, my expertise is helping entrepreneurs with their marketing. And your situation is very much like Lisa's. When she first came to me, she said, look, we have a great product, a great service. We charge the same as our competition, but their marketing is better than ours. So that, again, you say is, and what how we managed to turn Lisa's business around is exactly the way we'll turn yours around. And I'm confident if you were to pick up the phone and she's happy to give me a reference, she would tell you within 6 months, we quadrupled our sales, we increased. That's how you do it. And then you might say is, it would be a pleasure to help you with your business. And if you would enjoy the results that Lisa has, is there a reason we shouldn't start next week? Any others?
What is the best way to thank people for their time?
I wouldn't thank them for their time. I would well, it depends. If this is at a speech, I would say, thank you for selecting this session. If it were a sales conversation, I would never thank them for the time, because every Tom, Dick, and Harriet thanks them for the time. I would thank them for the opportunity to discuss how the Fripp coaching program might be the best for them.
All right, and then we have what's more important when I'm conducting my coaching presentation, working on the actual presentation or spending more time practicing giving it?
Probably 2/3 is going to be preparing it and 1/3 the rehearsal. The mistake that many of my corporate clients make is that what they do is they think once they've got the outline and the opening scripting and the PowerPoint, they're done. I always say you're halfway done. Now get it in your body. And this is why, if you take in advance, now obviously we cannot in a webinar deliver every part of the content that we did at Converge, but and I offered another webinar. We offered 2 times on 2 dates, because although you can, as soon as you sign up, you get the replay, whether you attend live or not. The next one, what I'll do is I'll focus more on speech structure. And you can save a lot of time if you have a good speech structure, and then you have more time for rehearsal. And Paul, what you will put in the notes, and with the follow-up, the time and the date of our next webinar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any others?
Yes, from Bill. When starting a presentation, I always lead with a story. I sometimes wonder if it is important that I reintroduce myself after being introduced, considering my name and picture is on the cover slide.
Well, you don't have to if you feel there is a great need. But again, if they introduce your name, if it's in the program, if it's on the slide, I don't really think you need to. And probably you have a handout with your name and information. So, for example, we will in a couple of slides give you my email and ways to communicate. If you feel the great need to, you could say, especially if you have an unusual name, you could say, so as you heard, I am your name. And then if you have a really unusual name, you could say, which rhymes with. I often say, I'm Patricia Fripp. Remember, take a trip with Miss Fripp. So something that would help them remember it. Any more?
That is all for now.
Good. Well, what you heard from Lisa and is, if you are interested in recertification credits, in fact, this might be a good question to ask Paul. What is our next polling?
Do you need recertification credits? And that is actually up right now.
Good.
And it is split right down the middle, 50-50.
All right, perfect. Well, if you are interested in presentation skills and upping your game, there are 2 ways we can do it. There's really 1 way and 2 options, because all learning requires repetition and reinforcement, and you know this in your own work. And we will show you, actually, in fact, Paul, in a moment, can we show everybody a sample of what the online learning FRPPVT looks like?
Absolutely.
So we're going to show you a sample, and obviously as an ICF member or anyone who is at this webinar, we will certainly give you a friend of the family 20% discount. And this is, you would pay, the first month is $237 and then $23 a month. However, if you want recertification credits, through extra credits, you can get both. It's just a matter of which way you want to consume it. So with that, Paul, if we can show a trial and then come back here.
All right,
So,
bring that up now.
okay. And there we are. If you ever give webinars yourself, have a moderator. So we have our core content. We have extra content, but the core content is around getting started, finding content, speech structure, connecting to your audience, stories, options of openings, specificity, builds credibility. Then if you're giving a lot of speaking, how do you adapt and personalize your message to different audiences? And then superstar sales presentations would certainly help you with your sales presentations. Leadership presentations is if you are coaching your clients on their presentations, this is a process that would probably help you. So, Paul, why don't we go to the importance of a good story? Because everyone loves good stories.
Absolutely.
The importance of a good story. Nobody can resist a good story or well told. In this course, you will learn the techniques that will make your stories and examples memorable and repeatable. If you're ready, click the Start Training button. How often have you sat in an audience and been mesmerized by a speaker? Was it their compelling content? Were their stories scintillating? Do they have the ability to reach out and grab you in a way you thought, wow, the speaker is talking just to me? Be honest. How many life-changing, career-building, or awe-inspiring presentations have you heard? Have you ever been that speaker? What would it mean to you and your career if you had that ability? I guarantee if you've heard a good speech, sermon, or business presentation that you enjoyed and remembered, at least one reason that made it memorable was the stories. Everybody loves a good story, and that is part of their power. No matter what our culture, we grow up feeling that hearing a story is somehow a reward. Stories are how we learn values and our family's legacy. When we're in school, stories make history come alive. In business, we quickly discover that stories help us explain complex issues and are the best way to connect to co-workers, customers, and audiences of all sizes and makeup.
All right, Paul, thank you. Now, that timing was a little off because we're showing this through Webinar Jam, but give you a sample of what we are doing. Now, Paul, can we come back to the PowerPoint where we were?
Absolutely.
Good. So, you know, I am part of the faculty, as Lisa told you, for extra credits, which is, and I'll let certainly Lisa tell you about that, where you can get my powerful how to create and deliver powerful presentations and also receive the continuing education credits. So, Lisa, can you jump in here? There she is, well behaved. Good.
Hi, everybody.
All right. So, Lisa, will you talk a little bit about the getting continuing education credits for my training?
Sure. So for those of you, I understand that 50% of you require continuing coaching education and 50% of you do not. So for those of you that do require the continuing coaching education, you simply go to extracredits.com. I've submitted the URL within the chat feed and access Patricia. And you have her 24/7, 365 days a year. So one of the things that was really exciting and the feedback that we got when we were at ICF Converge is that every single coach that we spoke to, whether they were an ACC, PCC, or an MCC, who required continuing coaching education, that 40 credits a year, were excited that they didn't have to do it during revenue generating hours and that they could do it anytime, anywhere. And they could do it in, most women said, in their pajamas. And so that was very exciting for them. So you would go to extracredits.com, Patricia Fripp, and you would access Patricia online, on demand, 24/7.
Good. So it's the same content, whether you just want it month by month, or if you want it with getting the continued coaching education credits. We are very happy. We've got Lisa's phone number and email, my phone number and email. We're very happy to talk to you about that.
Yep, and they do need to know that the certificate is automated and comes direct to you after completing, and they have 90 days to complete their course.
Good. Wonderful. Paul, do we have any other questions or comments?
We do. There was another one from Bill. When, excuse me, he offers complimentary coaching sessions when finishing a presentation. Do you have any suggestions on how to do that?
Good. I would do it before your close. So let's just say, Bill, you're going through the review of your presentation. So now you know how to, you go through your talking points. That's your review. And then you say, if you had considered coaching to help you do it, now you have a new best friend. I always say you have a new best friend who is an expert, and either you have a drawing, or because you are attending, just as because you're attending, we will give you a 20% ICF discount. We would say, so you could say is, I'm happy to give complimentary coaching sessions, and I would have a drawing or do something, Bill. I don't know if you could offer the entire audience, but you would make your offer before the conclusion of your presentation.
All right. And then I get very nervous every time I have to present, regardless if it's a coaching session with a group or when I'm public speaking at a breakout conference. How do I overcome or control it?
Well, it's a matter of controlling. So if we go back to the beginning, as you don't trust inspiration, it's preparation, it's rehearsal, it's collaboration. And stop telling yourself you get nervous, because you're programming in a behavior you don't want. And if Paul, can you bring me up big now rather than the PowerPoint? Good, thank you. Don't program what you don't want. And perhaps you want to rehearse in a safe place. For example, Toastmasters is the least expensive way you can practice on a regular basis in a very supportive environment. That would be one way to do it. And it would be prepare early, go to the room early. Have a friendly face in your audience. You might take one of your friends with you. And what you are doing, you are focusing on yourself, which is natural. However, we are there to serve the audience. And if you go early and shake hands and schmooze with people and give them the attention, and once you have a great opening that you see the response, then you'll get off to a good start. That's one of the importance of the openings, and you can connect to the audience before you even start your presentation.
And those are all the questions that we have.
Well, thank you very much for your attendance. We hope that this was of value, whether you watched it live or whether you watched the replay. We do invite you, if you're interested in presentation skills, that Fripp virtual training, FRIPVT.com, and certainly you can take a trial, is the most effective, easiest convenient, highest quality way you can improve your presentations on a regular basis, and you can get your continuing coaching education credits with extra credits. Lisa, do you have any concluding remarks?
Hello, just putting myself back on, getting any feedback. No, I want to thank everybody for the opportunity to provide them great quality content about mastering how to become a better public speaker and presenter. And of course, did you want to take a moment to talk about your Fripp speech model, Patricia?
Well, everybody who has signed up live or as a replay will get the handout and also an infographic of a speech model presentation.
Fantastic.
And if you would like more information about any aspects that you've heard, please feel to write Lisa or me or call us. And with that, thank you, Paul. And remember what Fripp stands for. Frequently reinforce ideas that are productive and profitable. Thank you.